All right, well, why don't we get started? 6:34 and a half.
5:30.
Oh, 5:30, correct, you're right.
Yeah, I told you.
We usually start at 6:30.
All right. So I think, I think you've had the opportunity to fix the names and faces of everyone as they came in. There are two folks who are missing, but in the interest of time, we'll get started. And so we'll just welcome you to walk through your proposal.
Sure. All right, great. Well, my name is Matt Lowe from Hoyle Tanner. I'm a senior vice president with the firm, and with me tonight is Bill Davidson, who's a vice president and our chief civil engineer. And we appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight to expand upon what we've submitted to you in the past with regard to this project. Quick little outline. We'll tell you a little bit more about ourselves and our experience and how it might be able to help you, and then weave that into how that might be a good partnership with the town and the committee to create a vision for you at the Marston property. So who are we? Well, we've been working with the town for a long time. We've had 7 bridge projects and the recreational plan that was developed a few years ago. I was the project manager for 6 out of those 7 bridge projects with the town, and on Mill Pond and Freeman Hall and McCrillis and Mill Pond again, and those projects. So had quite a great relationship with the town, and we're excited to be able to continue that. So did we do a good job or not? Charlie Brown thinks we did. This was his review of us to New Hampshire DOT a few years ago. We enjoyed a great relationship with Charlie, and remember hearing when we were working on Mill Pond about the property and what was going on and all the contamination, and at that time it was a distant vision, but now it's exciting to see that the opportunity is now there to take that piece of property and turn it into something that everybody can enjoy. So Bill's our chief civil engineer, and really the expert behind what our services would be here for you. Evening.
My apologies.
No apologies necessary. Bill's got a lot of experience with recreational fields and schools and athletic facilities and properties like this, and turning concepts into reality. So I'll let Bill talk a little bit about what some of his experience is and how it might relate to what you're looking for here.
Sure, I'll talk about some of the projects that I've worked on, and by all means, if you have any questions or anything, you can certainly ask while we're going through this. These are some slides and some pictures of projects that I've done. Both of these particular projects are in Milford, but I've also done both tracks in Hollis Brookline, in Merrimack. Done a number of ball fields, soccer, baseball, softball, pretty much you name it. I've done it in certain different towns. Done a lot of field events, a lot of shot put, javelin, discus, all your high jump events. And it's kind of a passion of mine to see these projects actually get built, and then you go to the events and they have a football game and you get to see, everybody in the bleachers and the things. These are really good projects, things that I'm definitely interested in. One that I wanted to give for an example is Earl Legacy Park. This is a project that I did in Bedford, and it's at the corner of New Boston Road and Wallace Road, and it's a fairly decent size parcel. It gets year-round use, has a lot of individuals from all over that use this site, and it's a lot like the Marston property. Some of the things that they have there is they have tennis courts, basketball courts. This is right adjacent to the Riddlebrook School, which I also designed in Bedford. It's an elementary school, but there's basketball, tennis courts. There's a small skateboard park, which they put in after the fact. Once it started generating some focus, they decided to put a skateboard park in there too. But it has softball. There's a full-size baseball field that was done there that gets a lot of use. Actually, there's a men's league that works out of there. And some of the things that really work well, this is the soccer field in the big one in the back, and then the softball field. And this trail map is, there's cross-country ski trails that they have all throughout the property. Riddle Brook goes through. There is one small pedestrian bridge that crosses over into Riddle Brook, and they have the ski club. They hold cross-country ski events there. There's if you look at the the next picture, Matt, this is a warming hut. This was also done, we designed this after, once the project got started and was constructed from a field standpoint. They saw that they were using it so much that they decided to put in this warming hut, which also turned out to be like a little mini community center that they have. They now have a septic system that we designed for that. It did not have that originally, but it was something that once the use started building, that they saw that they needed to do that. We did have a number of parking lots that were associated with this in different areas. One of them was off of Chubbuck Lane, which is down by the DPW lot, and it's a real interesting dynamic. They had multiple Eagle Scout projects that were in there. They cut a lot of the trails for that. One of them had some wayfinding signs that they put up, and there's been a lot of work from a large variety of individuals and volunteer groups on this particular site. We did bleachers. On the soccer. They had some bleachers on top, but there wasn't a lot of room because of grading, and they did slope seating on the side. So it just works well from having the kids around and everything. Everybody's sitting on the seats. So. One other thing I wanted to say on that. Yeah, sorry, I got behind myself on this. For size requirements, if you take a look at a soccer field, the soccer field's basically about 2 acres. I know you guys had, I think it was about 10 acres up front that was fields. But just so you can get a kind of a size element for that, you got about 2 acres on a soccer field, and then a 350-foot, which is a big 90-foot diamond for baseball, is about 2.5 acres. And these facilities had all irrigation, all Musco lighting, which is a sports lighting. There was one interesting element of it was the well system that we had to put in there. This site was contaminated by the salt shed. They had stored all the salt on Chubbuck Road at the DPW, and it got into the groundwater, and it contaminated the neighborhood wells in that area. So that when we designed the irrigation system, we had to put in a non-transient community well that was a non-potable well that was permitted through DES, so that they all had purple heads on the irrigation and made sure that everything was non-potable. And then we helped the town, and we assisted with them with running municipal water to tie in the whole neighborhood and everything that had been contaminated in that area. So I think that's what I have on that slide. This is another project, which is a Boys and Girls Club in Allenstown. We just recently did this project, and it's a Boys and Girls Club / senior center. They have a lot of elderly that needed a community center to go to, and that just basically went out to bid, and they started construction about 2 weeks ago. So there's it's funny that it's not funny, but there's also gas contamination on that site where they had a gas station leak, and there's a water recovery system on that site as well. But this right here is just a simple graphic that we put together. It was nothing fancy. It was just when we were going to the planning board to show the intent of what that project is. And this is a new the pink area of the building is a 2-story, 11,000 square foot community center with the senior center in it. And this is actually the second Boys and Girls Club that I've done. The first was, if you look in the qual sheets there, there's some projects on Keys Field, which we did reconstructions in Milford. And then one of the qual sheets is a pedestrian bridge, the Judd Gregg Bridge, which goes over the Souhegan River and then lands on the other side, which is the Milford Souhegan Valley Boys and Girls Club. And I live in Mount Vernon. My children go. I know you were looking for revenue sources and things for to generate monies to help maintain with these, and I don't know if it's something that would be considered or not, but I know that there's an after-school program at this Boys and Girls Club, and this could be something in Nottingham where I don't know what the how many school-age kids after-school program type thing that you might be able to do something with. I know my children enjoy going there and seeing all their friends after school, and then people like myself that are working are able to pick them up later on. Something to consider. I don't know if it would be anything that would work or not, but this is a sensible proposal. When we put our proposal together, very mindful of the costs that are associated. Again, I said I was from Mount Vernon. I'm very mindful of the small town financing and things. I know what it's like. I've been on building committees in town, and I volunteer in the fire department. I coach t-ball and boys basketball, which I think is going to turn into girls basketball if my daughter has anything to say about it. But we basically set this proposal on what we thought that you would need, and not anything really extra, to basically get you where we think you need to go, and put something together that's not going to, so to speak, break the bank, but get you where you need to go so you can come up with some good budget numbers and have a good feeling for what that project is and what your vision is for that project. Some of the landscape architecture, cultural resources, and wetlands and wildlife, these are all things that we think that you could probably get away with not doing in the initial steps. Obviously, we can walk and get some good parameters and guidelines for the wetlands. Landscape architecture, we typically use people like Randy Knowles and things for that, but at this level, I really don't think that it's necessary for you to do that. It's something you can add at a later point. That's kind of how we were looking at it, giving you only what you needed. Obviously, there's things that could be added to it if that was what you were looking to do. And again, this goes to the breakdown that we had in our proposal and our tasks that we went down to. Basically, the way that we had it set up was to do some research on what you have for existing documentation and boundary plans, anything like that that we can put together and come up with some concepts. Obviously, you already have some mapping done on it, and then listen to the group and possibly the public. We had some meetings in there so that we could, obviously we went through and Listen New Hampshire went through all the notes and things that you had on that. But that would allow us to build these concepts with your vision, and then refine, maybe do 2 or 3 concepts, and then refine that down to one concept to move forward with. The 3 concepts would give you initial cost estimates, and basically you pick and choose and put things together to come up with that refined concept. We did look into doing some site testing, possibly doing some test pits with the highway group, with their backhoe. From what I've seen, I've walked the site a couple times. I walked it back in 2011 when we did the 10-year recreation plan, and then again for this RFP, I walked it, and I really think that it's a well-suited site for development. You have good gravels, from what I can see. The NRCS maps show that you have hydrologic group A soils, which are sandy, gravelly soils. So from a development standpoint, it appears that it's well suited. And from a soil testing standpoint, you can also take samples and bring them to UNH Cooperative Extension to see, if you wanted to do something further with your project. I know there was talk of community gardens. You can figure out what you have for pH and balances and things like that, if it needed to be amended, if there was areas that a community garden or I've been thinking about this project quite a bit, and we went and picked up a Christmas tree. We went and chopped down a Christmas tree this weekend, and I was kind of quizzing the guy that was there that we bought our tree from, that runs the farm, and it sounded like this could possibly be something. I don't know if anybody's thought about Christmas trees, but if you would you can get about, from what he says, about 1,000 Christmas trees on an acre of land. And the tree that I bought was $40 that I cut down. So if you start looking at that from a generation, I mean, obviously you could, for Nottingham residents, you could, reduce the fees and things like that, but it could be a way to generate some money. The tree that I cut down was a 7-year-old tree. It was about my height. It was a little over 6 feet. I don't know, I just got to thinking about it because I've been putting some thought to trying to figure out how you can generate some funds. And that seemed like it might be an option that you can do. He buys his trees up in Sanbornville from the state of New Hampshire, and he buys them at 6-inch. They're very cheap and just need to plant it in. So I thought that might be a good idea. But I know you have athletic fields planned or considering that, which would certainly be a great use for it. Cross-country ski trails, benches along the river. I know they talked about ice skating rink. What we've done in Merrimack, and what I grew up with, was the tennis courts. The fire department would come down and flood the tennis courts, and that was our skating rink. The lighting was already there. It was a dual purpose, worked real well. And like I said, I live in Mount Vernon, and we have our farm, or what we call it is Lamson Farm, and it actually has a farmhouse, and it's a little bit larger in size, but they have town barbecues, town events there. They have Lamson Farm Day. They bring hay rides and things like that. So I really think that there's a lot that you can do with this piece of property to get creative with it, but it really depends on what the vision of the committee and the town folk is. And again, this is just kind of wrapping up where we've done our homework and done our review of the documentation that the committee has supplied when we were going through the RFP process. And like I mentioned, we did the recreation plan. I think that's kind of where I am. Does anybody have any questions at this point?
How are you? I'm good.
This is kind of a little off track, but you talked about having done like Merrimack's track facility, and I think you said Hollis Brookline.
Hollis Brookline and Milford.
Do you have a sense for what the approximate cost would be for just a single straight track? Like, think about the side.
Sprinter's track.
So you just have hurdles and 100-yard dash. And
Yeah,
things like
yeah.
that. Well, if you look at it from the standpoint, both of those projects that we did, or all three of those projects, which was a little while ago, was about $1.3 to $1.4 million, which had all kinds of field work with that. But if you're just talking about the straightaway for that,
It's almost like Livingston,
yeah.
except that was the full track.
Yeah, you probably have 8 lanes, which is gonna be in the 26-foot wide range. And then you're probably talking, you're gonna have a run out at the end. So you say 400 feet long, cause you have the 100-yard, which is longest. So what is that?
8 times 4 is a lane.
So you're gonna have, that's gonna be 26 times 400 actually. Just trying to figure out, the biggest cost that you're gonna have is your pavement. And then you're-
9,000 square feet.
Yeah, 9,000 square feet. I bet you're probably talking $150,000 by the time you get with all your gravels in there.
Yeah.
It's basically you're building a road. You'll have 3 inches of pavement, and then all those tracks were a latex track surface, which they put down a latex binder. They come back and sprinkle. They do 3 coats of the rubber granules.
Yeah.
And that's where you start getting into big money. The next step up is a urethane track, which is really expensive. So most of the times when you see high schools and towns events, they're doing the rubberized, the latex track.
We only have a middle school. We have kids who, we have a track team in the middle school, but our sprinters and hurdlers don't have a track to practice on. And so it's not for high school level, it's for middle school.
I think one of the big things about it, when you look at the return on that for these kids in terms of health, and then in terms of when they get to high school, scholarships and things like that. Track is an area that really gives you a good return, I think. So
Yeah.
we probably wouldn't need anything really.
Yeah, I don't see us
Future like
needing 8
this, maybe.
lanes, but,
But
you know.
right now, they're using batons that are sort of makeshift, and just a lot of the things
Yeah.
they're making do with. So we'd want something better than making do with, but maybe a little less than a Hollis Brookline type
Yeah,
of
yeah,
project.
yeah, yeah.
Well, we did do in Bedford, we did do at McKelvey Middle School, we did a running track, which was a 6-lane track, and we just did pavement and lane markings. It wasn't the rubberized, the latex surface, because that's where you really start getting into the,
Yeah.
you know, the rest of it's pretty straightforward construction. It's a specialty item when you start talking about the latex binder and tracks. Only a certain amount of people do that type of work. So if you didn't put down that surface and it was just the pavement, and they were getting used to passing the batons and doing their hurdles and that seems like that would be a good alternative as well.
Okay.
A lot
It
of
would
the
be a
high
little
school
cover.
students go to Co-Brown, I would imagine. A lot of them do, right? And they have a great running program at Co-Brown, so by the time they get to high school, they have the facilities, so that's
But
why
when
I
they
say.
get there, they have some really great facilities, and some kids go to Dover as well. And
Okay.
But we have seen a lot of success with our students running track
Yeah,
and
Well,
getting good scholarships, and it's a good thing for them.
Yeah, I mean, they practice here, and some of them, they practice here and they go to a meet and they've never stood on a track before. You know, that's just, they've never had the experience of running in a lane.
Right.
You know, that's all.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not I mean, I think that would be a longer term thing, but I was just curious about, since you had talked about the ones that you did. Other questions?
There's one, I think it was, where am I? Two things. What slide it is, it's the one where you're showing the rec building for the Earl Legacy Park.
Yep.
The small rec building and stuff, athletic fields, recreational facility. Was any geotechnical study needed to put a building that size in place? I mean, is
No,
that?
we had done, at that point, that building came afterwards, so we'd done all the grading in there. And this, if you go back one slide, Matt, this ball field here, in this right-hand corner was a large cut. We did about a 16-foot cut on this corner, and this other slide that's in the middle is about where that building is.
Okay.
So, this was all ledge that we had hammered out in that corner, so there wasn't any, geotech that was done with that. But we did do a septic design on that, which was in a fill slope off the back.
that doesn't mean that geotechnical wouldn't be required for a building on this site. Our, Bill manages our Portsmouth office, and that's where our building structural team is as well, so we would have to get our structural team involved at that point to determine what parameters might be needed.
The question is similar to the other group one. On your flood plan, I still, you guys got it indicated here. Did you actually work on part of this, or did you just extract the flood plan here, or the clear plan? Was that something you extracted?
That was from the,
That was from our 2011
yeah, that was from the
report.
2011 recreation plan that we
Okay,
did.
so that you actually developed this?
I
No.
don't remember, we worked with Ken Costello on that, and I believe that map came off the internet.
All right,
I believe
okay,
that's where it came
that's
from.
what I assumed, but it appeared like you had.
No, we didn't
I
do
guess
any-
you might have done some work on it.
No.
Okay, that's fine.
We did review as, you know, before coming here tonight, that
Right.
the floodplain hasn't changed.
Okay.
The layout of the zone, it's a Zone A flood area, so, and the limits are still the same.
Right, because obviously part of the concern is that takes up a lot of acreage if you truly followed that flood plan, and that just seems a little extravagant.
What does that floodplain restrict you from? I mean, it's a 100-year
Yeah,
floodplain.
Yeah,
that
the
we-
big thing that it restricts you from is from buildings or structures. It's commonplace, or very commonplace, for recreational type facilities to be in floodplains.
The
because it's-
fields,
Yes,
the
the
fields,
okay.
yeah.
excuse me, because it's a.
Just like when it floods over right here.
It's a real good use for the floodplain because, there's no safety concerns with, if it floods, you don't use the fields, you wait till it resides. It's not like you have a driveway that you can't get across, or you have to go to somebody's house, or the, fire truck can't get there. So a lot of the times, this is what you end up seeing for uses in floodplain areas.
Now, so there are restrictions as far as buildings. Now, what kind of restrictions are there as far as irrigation and fertilization and so on?
Yeah, there's
It is
not,
only a 100-year floodplain. We had the 2 Mother's Day floods. I don't think the water never made it up to where those blue lines are.
yeah.
And
Now,
those were our.
keep in mind, this map has been generated by FEMA, but
Right.
there hasn't been a detailed study done at this part, so there's no base flood elevation that's been determined.
Okay.
Part of the coordination with the Office of Energy and Planning could be, depending on what happens with the site, may have to determine a base flood elevation, depending on what you want to do in the floodplain area. So you can work in the floodplain area, it just depends. A building might have to be stilted or
Right.
or allow for flow-through. Recreational fields might be okay, but that's gonna come to fruition if an Army Corps permit is needed. The coordination with Jen Gilbert at OEP is going to come as a trigger from an Army Corps permit. If there isn't an Army Corps permit, then really it comes down to town ordinances on what can be done within a town that participates in the flood insurance program.
Okay.
One more quick question on that. So possibly that area could be used for parking? Would that be, is that possibly feasible?
Yes.
'Cause I mean, that's.
They care about the
I mean, it's
water being
perfect.
able to
That
flow
area
over.
is perfect from a perspective of a parking lot, I would think. As you go right in, hang it right there, well, that stuff we cleared up there.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's, okay,
as long as we don't go over the edge.
well,
You're supposed
yeah,
to
anyway,
design
but
it so
it's
you
usable
don't.
land, I guess.
Right.
With certain restrictions, and it seems to me like parking.
We do
would
have
be
another
perfect.
map, that we could bring up that shows the approximate wetland locations. Those are inside the floodplain. The floodplain extends further than the wetland areas do. There would be other restrictions depending on how close you
Right,
approach
yeah.
on those areas.
Yeah, again, I'm just thinking that area, because that is high and dry ground right there, the rest of it
Yeah.
is a little swampy down there, but anyways, okay.
And you bring up the wetlands, so would you do a full wetlands delineation on this?
Yeah, at this point, we hadn't had that included because we weren't sure exactly what the town was looking to do. I know that if you look at, from a wetlands delineation from somebody on a piece that big and where something's pretty sizable and well-defined, you're probably looking maybe $2,000 or less, I would imagine, for that area to get somebody reputable to do that delineation, and then you'd know for sure. But you can pretty much you can walk most of it, and if you have some experience, you can kind of see where that is without having somebody flag that. But it's,
Initially,
Yeah.
but eventually.
yeah, eventually, once it gets developed and design plans and things like that, that's.
And you may not have to flag the whole site, depending on where the encroachment might be. So our stance was, let's use available resources at this point, keep your bill down, and then supplement data when it's required, once there's a concept.
And then, so you're talking about 6 test pits, so looking at those test pits for soil composition, subsoil composition, drainage in those test pits, using town backhoe potentially as far as the labor to look at those
Correct.
test pits.
Correct, and that way we would keep down the costs. We would find out if we had any, high groundwater would be another thing that we'd be looking for, ledge, that type of things. Anything that's gonna have a constraint from a development standpoint.
We know how to work with John Fernald, we built 2 bridges with him, so,
Yep, yep.
yeah.
I'm just trying to think if there's something else that I wanted to. You mentioned lighting, so you talked about, 2 acres for a soccer field and then 2.5 acres for a baseball field, and that they were lighting. Do you have some rough estimates what a lighting, might cost if you're lighting a soccer field and a baseball field or something?
Yeah, there's, the typical lights that are used for sporting is Musco lighting is probably one of the better lighting. They're generally the ones that you see, and they're actually some in those photos there that if you look on your slides. But they have probably about 9 or 10 different lamps that are positioned in different areas. And And the way they get constructed is there's a concrete base that gets set into the ground, and then the light pole itself is hollow on the end, and it actually slides down and does a friction fit onto this. And the ones that we did are about 70 feet high, and I believe there's 4, and I believe that the price on those was about $80,000.
Total or each?
Total for those 4. And there's certainly other companies that do lighting. There's actually a fair amount of them, but from a sports, depends on what you use it for. If it's a football field and it's really getting a lot of use and there's spectators and bleachers and things like that, most of the schools and such use the Musco lighting because it's just better.
Those 4 lights, what area did that cover?
That covered the entire soccer field.
A soccer field?
Soccer field.
Okay.
Question? Good. So just generally, lights aren't required, generally, I mean, what's your, in most of the small towns like us, are they putting up the lights right off the bat, or is that something they're adding later?
Yeah, it's certainly, we've done it both different, both ways. On Milford, we were, on one of the projects in Milford at Jocks, we were constrained financially. So what we did is we ran all the conduit. We ran all the conduit for that. We did a layout for it, where we wanted our light poles. We brought the conduit to that, brought it up, didn't have any wires in it or whatever, and they did it at a later time. We weren't involved with that, but I know that they put the lights up. You know, if you have, in this particular case, you don't have a lot of neighbors. We've had projects before where some people have been concerned about having the lights up. I don't think that's gonna be a problem here. Obviously, you have a facility that you can manage the lighting when it comes on, when it comes off, so it doesn't interfere with anyone. So it runs the gamut, really.
Yeah. So it's optional, I guess, is what
Yeah.
it's.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just thinking UNH finally just put one in for their football field.
Yeah.
How long's UNH been around?
Yeah.
Longer than we want to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of at least planning for it, but it
Absolutely.
doesn't have to be a first
Yeah.
stage
Put the
thing.
conduit in
So
or
if
whatever.
it could be designed and phased, I mean,
Yeah,
might
exactly.
have conduit put in, might not have conduit. put in, but
Exactly.
Didn't
the design be there.
Wrigley Field in Chicago waited about 100 years, didn't it?
UNH waited in a
Have
hundred,
you,
didn't they, Jeff?
have you done anything with alternative energy sources, like solar power, solar powered lights, or anything like that?
Not from a standpoint on ball fields. We have done some geothermal stuff on office space buildings that we've done. That we've heard works really well from a payback standpoint. The payback's actually less than what they were quoted in the beginning. It's pretty interesting. They have a grid of wells that they punch much more than you would ever expect, or at least than I expected. I know we've done a little bit of solar work, but for small lighting sources and things like that. On
I
temporary.
can't recall anything like this project. that we've
No,
had
not
anything.
like this. Mostly for temporary traffic devices.
How about just for electricity creation that we could sell back to public service or whoever?
Yeah, we have been involved in some solar fields, some conceptual solar fields, and actually in the Virgin Islands that we did some layouts and had some racking
Lot of sun.
systems.
Yeah, nice place to go.
Yeah.
Hey, I think we need to go check those out.
Field trip.
So, yeah, that's certainly possible, and with a site like this that's open, you know, it's certainly.
Yeah, I kind of look at it as one edge along the road there, might be a nice fence of
Yeah.
solar. I don't know, but,
The issue that could come up there is that the limit on dumping back into the grid is being reached at this point, so
yeah,
the compensatory reward
right.
is starting to diminish. Unless they raise the,
Who knows what they're gonna do? Yeah, no, thank you.
A question regarding, have you ever done any indoor athletic facilities?
The only thing that I've done indoor facilities would be multi-purpose rooms inside of schools.
Okay.
I've done 2 of those, hardwood. One One was in the Merrimack Middle School, and the other was one that that was a new one. And then we were finished one in the Master Hole Elementary School.
So it included what, like basketball and?
Yeah, it had it was a basketball multi-purpose room. They had two of the large basketball nets on the side, and then they did it so they had four on the side so that they could fold. Typical,
Yeah.
what you would see in the gymnasium. I didn't do the full design, but we did. I don't know if anybody knows the New Hampshire Hills, the dome. So I was involved in the site work for that, the parking layout and such, and then they had a special company that came in and did the actual dome and the foundation for that and everything. But my son plays a lot of cross, so I spent some time there. It's pretty impressive. So are you guys thinking about doing something indoor? Or?
It's, you know, I
on
think
the table.
everything's open right now, and because of, you know, sort of looking at revenue sources, and looking to keep the kids active throughout the winter. A lot of them don't do the skiing thing and that kind of thing, so they do the basketball all winter long, or they'll do baseball all winter long, for that matter. And currently, we go to Candia.
I was just gonna say, the Candia facility.
To their club facility down there, and that is a very simple, you know, steel beam building
frame
with
building.
metal siding and some insulation and a bunch of nets, and they've got a full court basketball and then just a big multi-purpose field that they use for lacrosse and baseball and softball and whatever else. It's just really just an indoor practice facility. It's not a game facility, but it's a practice facility, and it's quite handy. So, just an idea.
Anyone else?
I think that's it.
Good, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it, yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Appreciate your time.
For having us here, and if there are any other questions, we can get those to us through Chris if you'd like, or we'd be glad to answer them for you. So,
Will do.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your
Thank you very
time.
much.
Appreciate it.
Great photo.
Thank you. We have additional copies of this. Do you have any members that are, oh, you already have a couple more there.
Yeah, I
Any
think,
need for any more?
I think we're all set, yeah.
I think we're good. Thank you.
Thanks for bringing us in.
How often do you guys meet?
As often as we need to.
It's getting short.
It's probably gonna be a lot between now and January.
Till we get those lights for those fields.
Oh, I don't know, I might be dead by then.
Yeah.
Oh, it's definitely an exciting opportunity.
It's been a long time coming. So I've been in town for 11, 12 years now, and it's been a topic of conversation for that many years and before. So
Yeah,
we're glad to see it moving forward.
I coached Little League with the Lamprey River for Deerfield.
Oh, okay.
I lived in Deerfield for a while.
Yep.
And remember coming over to the ball fields here to play.
Yeah.
And one season we got flooded out when
Yep.
the fields were being rebuilt. And I was gonna add too that Manchester North Little League, which I coached in quite a bit after that, just added lights a few years ago. It's an expensive
Yeah.
It's an expensive endeavor, so I think a lot of people exist without the lights for quite some time.
Quite a while.
It just can offer additional revenue sources if you have lights, you can run tournaments.
Is the water slot in the light?
that's a good idea.
Actually, we'll just,
Lots of Christmas trees.
the A team can play, the B team can run on the treadmills and generate some electricity.
All right,
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I saw something the other day that somebody's using a treadmill to, I don't know if anybody else saw this, but wood in the basement, I loved it, I thought that was great. So much extra exercise of carrying the wood around, just throw it on the treadmill and just shoot it into the basement.
That's pretty funny. It's definitely a creative use.
All right, guys. I'll just get that. Okay.
Going into a quiet meeting.
So as I mentioned in the email that I sent out, in the meeting reminder, we talked with Board of Selectmen last night, and, talked about the interest in, kind of making a decision and moving forward so that we could get going, and, not wanting to wait for 2 weeks if we don't have to get Board of Selectmen approval on a contract. And so, they agreed, and Chris Sterndale agreed, that if, this committee can make a decision tonight, and we empower Chris to have a green light to go forward and, work out the details of the contract, that the Board of Selectmen will meet, next Tuesday morning at 8:30 to, discuss and hopefully approve the contract. So, how do you guys feel about that as
Is that enough time for them to come up with a contract?
well, it's aggressive.
That's very aggressive.
It's aggressive. Yeah, part of the problem is that I'm going to be out of town Wednesday, Thursday, Friday next week.
You just
And
have to change the plan.
you call my boss.
Okay.
And we certainly don't want the Board of Selectmen selecting it without me there. So, I mean, we could shoot for Tuesday. If we're not ready for that, we can not hold that meeting, and then we can go for it the following Monday night. But I guess the first question is, how do you guys feel about, do you feel like you have enough information at this time to make a decision on which company you think we should go with?
I think so.
Okay? All right. So how do you want
Which company, but, but that's why, we got all the facts in front of us, and
Yep, you got all the facts. So how do you wanna do it? Do you guys wanna just, kinda go vendor by vendor, or do you wanna just, somebody go first and start throwing out comments, or? How would you
I'll
like
go
to?
first. I mean, I've, of the three that we had, honestly, the one that I think was the most thorough, had the most detail, answered the majority, if not more, than some of the questions that we asked, and really had like all the information sort of included in their presentation was Ironwood. That would be my choice.
And I would second that. I think their preparation up front for this, Hoyle Tanner certainly has walked the property, they're familiar with the property.
Yep,
Appears that Hoyle Tanner also took a look at the New Hampshire listens.
yep,
It was obvious that Ironwood did as well. But it certainly seems, as far as the preparation, the maps, the floodplains, anybody with a little bit of skill in granite and doing stuff with GIS can pull any of that stuff off of the web and look at it. But it looked like,
But they did,
Ironwood went a little bit further in terms of how they were looking at things, and they did it. But I don't think put the effort into the stuff that we were asking for. So, to me, the decision is between Tanner and Ironwood, but Ironwood certainly seems to have put the effort into.
And that's where I think
Everything.
Ironwood differentiates themselves in the sense that, they, Hoyle and Tanner, yes, they've done work in town, but they kept saying that they weren't exactly sure what we wanted to do with the property, yet we've given them a ton of information regarding what the town wants to do with the property. Ironwood took that into consideration, and I think Ironwood also played it in the sense that, they were looking out for, future plans, basically saying, okay, you guys wanna do this, but maybe down the line, you're gonna wanna do that, so you should plan this ahead of time so that you give yourself the opportunity to have that in the end, which none of the others really did that, especially when they said that they didn't wanna do, they didn't wanna do wetlands delineation, none of that was included, whereas Ironwood said, yeah, we're gonna make sure that you're not encroaching on anything, and that kind of thing, so.
this side of the room?
I'm pretty much in the same boat. I'm sorry I missed the presentation tonight, but, it appeared to me that the dollar numbers are relatively equivalent. I don't see anything that was really different. They all seem to have the same types of things that would be extra charges and that kind of stuff. I couldn't decipher whether any of them were, quote-unquote, included in one fee versus another. But I would agree, I think the Ironwood presentation and the package that they gave us, certainly hit on a lot of things that we had talked about, however they knew about it.
Which one was Ironwood, the first or second one?
Second.
Second one,
Okay.
Second one.
I put them in
And
order.
I guess one of the things too is, so there's a little bit different in the approach to soil testing, et cetera. So Ironwood's gonna look at it with, you know, with 10 random auger, down to 10 inches deep, which is probably as deep as you need to go. If you're digging a test pit, I think you can probably go a lot deeper than that. I don't know if there's a big difference between them, the size of the auger that you use and how deep you go. You're pulling subsoils up to take a look at what's under there, so, you know, one person is gonna require a backhoe to do it, and the other ones are gonna go in
Yeah.
with augers to test it. I think the less disturbance, the better personally, but in terms
Yeah.
of digging.
But the test pits actually have to be done for water
Correct.
seepage, right?
But
So they usually dig a hole.
They dig a hole, but if you're, the size auger that you're using, you're removing the materials out of
So you
that.
can use that hole,
I believe you can also use that in terms of
Okay.
the drainage. I could be wrong on that, but I don't know that for sure. Obviously, with the test pits, you're looking at how quickly it fills, but if the augers remove the material, I would think you'd get refilled back into that hole too. I don't know that for sure. So that was one difference, at least between those two. And then there just seemed to, there was no mention with this group, as far as any type of funding opportunities or helping with that, whereas Ironwood, you know, had a lot of stuff that I had.
Yeah, that got me excited about them too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as Hoyle Tanner tonight?
Hoyle Tanner tonight didn't say anything about it, and I didn't see anything.
Funding, no, but revenue sources, yes.
Revenue sources, yes.
They actually talked much more about revenue sources than Ironwood did.
Right.
Correct. But as far as, you know, where do you find funding to actually do some of the projects that you want to do?
Yeah, yeah. Chet?
Yeah, I don't think I disagree with, that Ironwood seems to be on top. I think what I'd like to see us do though is just compare the numbers on each of them and make sure each one of them's we're doing the apples to apples.
Yep.
I think we
Yep.
are.
Yep.
But I think that should be a final test, to make sure we're getting, for our, first 18 and our 17, all those, are we getting the same thing?
Okay, yep.
That's my only thought.
Tom?
Yeah, no,
Yeah, I think that's a good idea,
Okay,
because I was thinking more for these last guys, and it wasn't Ironwood, but I also liked Ironwood.
Yeah,
I think if I remember, I did a quick, estimate before we came tonight, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we're looking at, wetlands mapping, no, I'm sorry, that was Ambit's. Ambit's actually brought their estimate up to about $28,500
Right.
with their extra
right.
stuff that seems to be
With-
somewhat included in these others, although,
Not really.
not really.
Not
true.
really,
No.
not really included.
that was my comment. I couldn't figure out which
No,
stuff was
no,
included
none
or
of it-
not,
None of
but
it includes, topographic detail mapping, none of it includes the wetlands delineation,
Right.
so none of them do that.
Exactly.
But from what I've gathered from the conversations that we've had with these three companies, is really a topographic survey is hardly gonna be necessary for a piece of land that changes, 1 foot over every 50 feet or whatever. I mean, we're not, yes, we're gonna be moving soil and we're gonna need a permit for that soil, but a topographic map is not, you're looking to level the ground out.
Although that's not how Ambit described it.
Yeah, I would agree.
Ambit talked about it quite differently. They said if, right now, I think these are 10-foot
Yep.
intervals,
Yep.
and that's not sufficient
They said
to
one.
plan fields out because of, if you have a 2-foot drop over a distance like this, that's pretty
Or an
significant.
8-foot drop, you won't
Right.
see that.
Right, so
on
you're
a
not gonna
10-foot
see it on the
scale.
existing top
Yep.
post, so pretty much all of them, I think, would have to do a more detailed topo at a shorter interval.
I
No.
would agree, because you
Right,
probably
but one
got
of-
an 8-foot drop, I'll tell you that, from where your park drive in to where that bottom out of that field is. It doesn't look like it, but
Yeah.
I'm just.
It probably is.
If you just drive the road,
Yeah.
you see the road start to phase right off down in towards that area, so,
Isn't the real question when you have to do it?
yes, yeah,
Right.
and I don't
And
think we
that's
need to
part-
do it.
Right, we don't need to do it right now.
And where you need to do it. You don't need to do the whole property if you're not gonna do anything with it.
Exactly.
Right.
So-
Exactly.
Because you don't need to do it where you're gonna be putting running trails or
Right.
cross-country. I
Right.
like the idea of cross-country ski trails.
And-
I know, I think that's a good
And-
idea too.
Yeah.
Ambit really never said that. Ironwood did.
Yeah, yeah.
We only wanna do those topographic type things when you,
When you don't
in
need.
those areas where
Correct.
we're gonna be doing, so you know how much fill.
Do we have to do wetlands mapping, or is what you brought last week, is that sufficient?
I don't know.
I think if you have a survey that includes a wetland delineation from a land survey, that's usually what you need. I mean, if someone's out there and actually done the survey and done the ground truthing on that, not just the property bounds, but also where the wetlands bounds are based on, and that's usually based on plant material. So it's looking at the plant types that are there. You get all these kind of things that you can get from aerial mapping as well, but until you ground truth it, you don't know. So if the survey's gone out there and has delineated those wetlands, we shouldn't need additional wetlands mapping done.
Except for if you were encroaching on those wetland areas.
Correct, then you need
needed-
specific
Correct,
where that is.
Or
so that-
detail?
and that would be the only thing. So if we're running out of land in that, you know, or we have wetlands that appear in the middle of the property for some reason where a ball field would be, that's when you get involved.
Yeah.
But I don't think
Yeah. Okay.
So when you
we're under that.
encroach, is that what you're
Right,
saying?
so if you're encroaching within the certain setback of those wetlands, so that if a ball field is coming in, it doesn't mean that you can't build a little closer to those wetlands, but you need particular permits or
Protections
whatever
in
to
place.
be able to do that.
They-
So,
They said 2,000 or less, but that's just for the delineation, not the whole mapping.
that's correct.
Okay.
And that's pretty much, the other guys, they did 2,500, so
Right.
it's,
Yeah, it's not that
ballpark.
much.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
and then the more detailed are, I don't know, Ambit, I guess it was, said 7,500 or something like that.
That was for the topo,
Yeah,
yeah. But then they also talked about a geotechnical report.
right, and it
Yeah.
sounds like from Ironwood, and it sounds like from these guys, like geotechnical, may not be needed unless you're really going into the size of a building,
Yeah, yeah.
more or
Yep.
less, not so much for any of the
Yep.
the recreation, other
At least it
recreation
seems like we
facilities.
wouldn't need it now.
Right.
Right.
Well, yeah, I think you would need it now, only because if you do decide to put a building in, you don't wanna have to take out a ball field in order to put a building in. You know what I'm saying? So if you find a location where it's ideal to have a building, then you'd want, and it's a phase 3 thing, we'd wanna leave that space open for a building at a phase 3 and put the ball fields in first and that kind of thing. So-
Right, but you
But-
wouldn't need to do the geotechnical analysis of that soil and site. I mean, unless,
But I think
Well, I don't know, I mean,
realistically,
if it's a criteria for putting up a building, I would,
realistically, I believe that area is very much the same throughout.
yeah, from what
I
I've
mean,
seen,
it-
it's all sand and gravel.
it's gravel all the
Yeah.
way down
It's
to
gravel,
Trace, man.
you know, it's.
30 feet of
There are no
gravel
ledge
underneath
outcroppings, you know, there's nothing really there that's gonna
Salt gravel.
provide any sort of, thing that would, hinder building except for whether there's just too much gravel.
Right.
Where you gotta figure out how to support the building.
right,
And you could ask them if they're gonna do the test pits, run some of the test pits up where they would anticipate. In other words, they're gonna do the soil samples anyways. They could drop down 10 feet or whatever, and then theoretically, you could do it right at part of that test, just a
Right.
high level.
We never asked any of them, but based on what we know of the property, is there a particular location where we would think the building would be the most appropriate?
I think
think
it's
we
gonna
talked
read
about
right
it
in
being
on the
as
right.
close to the beginning of the
Yeah.
Where the
thing
barn
after you
was.
had
Where the-
a roadway.
Where the
That's
barn
why I
was.
was asking
Parking
where all
lot.
that
Really?
flood plan is the best spot for the building theoretically, and the
Right.
parking up there.
Right.
And then run all your fields down the back, and
Yeah.
that's not being an architect or designer, just common sense would say, put it up there.
Yeah,
And it
that's right.
didn't, it didn't, that floodplain didn't encompass all of that area. It looked like it encompassed some of where the, you know, the house itself had.
Yeah.
had
Yeah, but
been.
that's where we're talking about
According
putting
to
the
this
building.
Right, but you could do parking there.
Yeah.
You
So if
could
you
do
did
parking.
parking actually in that floodplain area and then shifted a potential building site a little bit, you can always shift the road in a little bit
Right.
and move that so the van coming in this way kinda goes around that way.
Or berm it. Drumlins, put in some drumlins
Yeah.
for hillside seating.
One thing about Harold Tanner coming in tonight, I think they came in, and I don't mean this to be as negative as it's gonna sound, but I think they came in wearing their Charlie Brown hat of, you know, how can we do this, you know, cheaply, you know, how can we get away with doing this as cheaply as possible?
Right.
Right? Recognizing that that's sentiment of a large part of the town. What I didn't get from them is, really helping us establish the vision. I don't wanna shortchange the vision, right? I wanna make sure that we have that vision, so at least we know where we're going, and then figure out what we can afford to do when. But I don't wanna shortchange the vision piece of it.
Now, they talked about that a bit in their proposal, their written proposal, but they didn't really discuss that in terms of, you know, kind of meeting with, again, with townspeople, pulling in more information other than, you know, what had come through on the, I almost said community profile.
I thought they said they would meet with townspeople
They
again.
did, in this proposal, but they didn't really, they kind of washed over it here, that wasn't something that they emphasized here, but it was in their proposal, so they did talk about that. The other thing I'm a little bit concerned about, although, I mean, they've done quite a bit, but what's emphasized again in their written proposal is there's a lot of civil projects.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, really, really excellent civil engineers, and the projects they've done in town have all been civil engineering projects. So they do a tremendous amount of those, and fairly high-end school-related parks, except for the one that they mentioned here, the something in Bedford.
You don't wanna do the $4 million, Portsmouth High School recreation facility?
This Legacy Parks, you know, sounded a little bit more like
Yeah.
What you
Yeah.
have, what this is,
Yeah.
yeah.
what we're looking for here. But when you look through, you know, there's stuff here and, you know, quite a bit at UNH, and I don't know, in all honesty, I'm not impressed with the sidewalks and the other stuff, but that's just me. Seeing some of the work that's been done in renovations around campus, so, but not just these guys, but other folks as well. But that's one of my concerns, is just that's a lot of civil projects, and I know they did the 10-year rec plan, but, I think that, Ironwood probably has a little bit more with the rec stuff, and I don't know, Janet, you've had information and stuff from Newmarket, and I guess these guys have these guys done Newmarket and Will Tanner?
I had good marks from both Hampton Recreation and Newmarket Recreation for both Ironwood and Hoyle Tanner.
So Donna, one thought, if we agree, seems like we take Abbott, out of the pile,
Yep.
Ambit,
Yep.
and then concentrate on the other two?
Yep,
That makes sense?
yep,
Yes.
yep.
Then it starts to really push down apples to apples. And I've been looking at the apples as we're talking, the apples seem really, really, really close.
Yep.
And it seems to be we're getting the same product out of both of them, dollar-wise, it appears. I think they looked at each other's reports. Because, I mean, they're really close.
Yeah, well,
Well, they were
I
responding.
wouldn't go that far.
Yeah, I would still say that, to me, Ironwood definitely stands out as being, you know, my preferred choice,
Yep.
just because of the experience that they've shown, the the length of detail that they went into discovering, what was involved with the town of Nottingham, even going as far as showing, distance to the center of town, noting where all the other properties are in town, notifying us of, possible resources, revenue sources, as well as, most importantly, funding sources, and even offering assistance with some of that, so.
No, I don't disagree with you, I'm just trying to do diligence.
Yeah, no,
I hear
Make
you.
sure we're doing apples to apples, and if we're doing apples to apples, then it seems like we've got a logical choice. But
You're looking at the cost, like, is there something material missing from one?
I'm just thinking of
Yeah.
appropriate evaluation of RFP.
Yep.
You've looked thoroughly at the products, you've looked thoroughly at the cost, and then make your final decision, again, so, but, that's all.
Yep,
To do
yep.
diligence on this committee.
It looks
Are you
pretty close.
suggesting that maybe we take these and look at them separately and then have another meeting?
No, I think we got enough, Tom. I don't wanna
Right.
walk out of here and say, well, geez, these guys are doing, but they're not even doing this. I just wanna make sure we all understand, this is what they're both doing, and I think they are.
So what I was just doing the same thing, so I looked at Ambit and Woodburn, and it's about a third of the way in, where they have their approach and scope of services, starting with site assessment.
What page are you on?
There's no page number.
Oh, okay.
So, well. 1, 2,
Yeah, it's
Page
in,
4,
it's in
5.
C, approach and scope of
5,
services.
yep. So I started comparing that list to this list, right?
Yep.
And I think they look pretty comparable.
Which one, Donna, which ones were you looking at?
So looking at, oh wait, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. Oh yeah, no, we took Hoyle Tanner out.
You took Ambit out. Ambit.
You took Emmett out.
Oh, I thought Hoyle Tanner was the one. Oops, sorry, never mind. I'm looking
That's
at
why I
the
was
wrong
wondering why you
one.
were going back to
Yeah, I was
Ambit.
I'm
wondering
confused,
why
sorry
you
about
were
that.
going
I'll
back
cross that all out.
Sorry. Senior moment.
I fully understand.
Drew us a curve, we had.
You like Ambit?
Then, no, I don't know that there's much discussion.
Okay, so Ironwood has this list, the table,
Yep.
and then these guys just have the page 20, right?
Well, it starts, actually starts on page 19.
19 gives you the narrative of what you're actually doing for the money,
Yeah.
what it includes.
Okay. All right, so Ironwood's site assessment matches Hoyle Tanner's task 1 from the general scope of things. I'm not sure they both are doing the same thing, but I think that's equivalent. Hoyle Tanner seems to be doing a lot of research. Assess the site, I'm not real sure what that means.
Well, and they seem to wanna have to, redo what's already been done, which is meet with the community, and
Yeah.
purpose of resident meeting is to hear the voice of the community. We heard the voice of the community. We're here to move forward. We're not here to start from ground zero again.
Exactly.
They don't need to schedule their own meetings.
You could get,
I forgot to ask them what their
you gotta
time
get
was.
paid for this. Well,
So, so Hoyle Tanner says up to 3 concept designs. Ironwood says 2. I don't know that that makes a big difference, but that is one difference. They say, yeah, I don't know that 3 is necessary, I'm just flagging differences. I think so. They have 6 test pits for Hoyle Tanner. I think,
Ironwood's got 10.
yeah, Ironwood had 10. Again, don't know if that's
And
a,
slightly different methodology in what they're doing with those.
but where does, the only thing I'm curious about that with the testing is that that's a 0 on that line item for Ironwood, it's a 0.
Because it's included, right? The site analysis.
Well, I thought it was because the town proposed it.
Which one are you looking at now,
With
Donna?
Ironwood, they're doing hand augers.
Yeah.
Okay,
So, and with both of the other, companies, it's no cost as long as they get to use the town back.
I did see in the narrative that they said that they would do the 10.
Hand augers.
Yeah, okay, so
That's
it's
what I'm
just,
saying, there's difference in methodology
Yep.
of what they're using, and so there's no cost to actually do that unless they had to go get a backhoe.
and they've got site reconnaissance and soil borings,
Yes, yeah.
so that's where
Right.
that falls,
6
up under the
hours.
site assessment,
Right.
6
okay.
hours allocated for that.
okay. All right.
One thing we didn't ask these gentlemen tonight is turnaround time.
Yeah, that's what I, was saying the same thing.
Yeah. But we didn't push to see what their work schedule was.
Well, if they accept the contract, it'll be our determination.
Yeah, I mean, part of the contract would be having something ready in time for, town meeting, so,
Regardless of who gets it.
yeah.
We assume that the town would like the final cost estimate and presentation materials by the end of 2015, while allowing time to compile and prepare for the 2016 meeting. So they're aware that this is Hoyle Tanner.
Oil Tanner, so they were aware that that's part of the,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
All right, well, that's similar.
That was on page 20 under schedule.
All right, yep, yep. Certainly doesn't appear like there's anything missing in either one of them.
Right.
Do they, I don't see it, I know I saw it somewhere, something about I know Ironwood had it in there, but it was the cost estimates for each of the different
Yep.
plans that they
Yep.
provide to Soil
Task-
Tanner?
Yep, they
Task
said they did
4 on
that.
page 20, they say prepare a cost estimate for each of the 3 selected concepts and meet with the committee to discuss each and select one for further refinement.
Where do you see that?
Top of page 20 under task
Oh,
4.
okay.
Task 4.
Gotcha. Hadn't gotten there yet.
And they do the same thing, a color plan
Right.
for marketing, generating interest, et cetera, et cetera.
So it's a difference of $2,900.
No? What is it? What's these other guys?
2,900.
Okay.
And from my perspective, it feels like we're gonna get a little more of the complete vision of what we would be looking for from Ironwood, and to me, that's worth a $3,000 difference.
Certainly, the expectation from the presentations would be that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it appears to me that they have just a lot more experience with what we're looking to do, which is community stuff and athletic fields and all of that, versus, I mean, they had some experience obviously with ball fields, but like we were saying, they did a lot more, what is it, state work and stuff like that, so.
I mean, I just really like some of the stuff that they had put into their presentation here, the Ironwood. I mean, they had these overlays that you could put in there with the baseball and the different ball fields, so there was a little extra effort that went into that, so.
You know, has CMA and Ironwood worked with Nottingham before on projects? I thought I read that
CMA
someplace.
has, I think.
You have not?
I think CMA has.
Well, that's what I
Heard of
thought.
them.
Oh, yeah, here it is. It's open to the page. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Just didn't notice.
All right, sorry, I thought I saw it there someplace.
They're even using our seal on their thing, so, I mean, are they part of us?
Oh, you didn't know we acquired them.
I know.
Yeah, that's how we're gonna fund this.
Chet, I think that's on the sign, isn't it?
That sign's looking ratty already too.
Is there any more discussion, or would anyone like to make a motion?
Based on what somebody else has already said, I have a lot of knowledge of the CMA people, not necessarily the guys that came, but I did a lot of work around them, with them, whatever way you want to look at it. And they've always done a pretty good job. Oil Tanner, I don't have quite as much interaction with them, except that I just know that they've always done a good job.
Who did the firehouse?
Pardon?
Who did the firehouse?
Who did the firehouse?
House?
You mean the new building?
Yeah.
We did.
Oh, the company that, it was neither one of these guys,
That far back, come on.
but it was neither one of these guys.
No. Matter of fact, wasn't there somebody local?
I'll make a motion to have Ironwood CMA as our company of choice
Award the contract, you mean?
to forward the contract, however you want to word it.
What she said.
Award the contract.
To award the contract to Ironwood and CMA.
Well, to recommend to the Board of
Recommended
Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen, yeah.
that we- Yeah. Okay,
Make a motion to recommend Ironwood CMA
To the Board of
to
Selectmen.
the Board of Selectmen for awarding the contract.
do I have a second?
Second.
For conceptual design.
All in favor?
All right.
Fantastic. All right, so I will talk to Chris tomorrow, see how quickly we can get that moving along. He'll work through the details, move it along, and then share out, the final or near final for everyone to take a look at. And,
By email.
by email, yes,
Oh, you mean the contract?
yeah.
I personally don't need to see that. I mean, you guys are responsible for the contract.
Okay,
I think that's beyond our scope, but leave it up to
I
other
mean,
people.
I kind of agree with you on Chet, that's why I was like,
Okay.
I don't know the details of it, I think if
Yeah.
Chris,
What are you, no, but were you talking about the letter that he's gonna present to the selectmen?
no, I was actually talking about the contract. I assumed you guys would wanna see it, but if you're not, then Chris and I will just move forward with it.
I guess the only concern we might have is if they've gone and changed the concept of what we just wanted to accept.
Well, no, I wouldn't expect that, and I would expect Chris to make sure that that doesn't
So
happen.
Chris is gonna do that?
Yeah,
Following the schedules and all that kind of stuff that are already
When
in
would you
print,
expect
right?
that they
Okay.
might take that up
So-
at their selectmen's meeting, cause I might
Yeah,
still wanna
fine.
be there.
yep, that's fine. I'm sorry, what time?
Not as a
When
stipulation.
would they take up this at the selectmen's meeting?
If we can move this forward quickly this week, the selectmen have agreed to meet next Tuesday morning at 8:30.
I wanna make sure I don't get there.
so can I make a suggestion? Go ahead and send the contract out, if anybody has any real,
Yeah, if you wanna read it and you have anything, let us know. If you don't wanna read it, that's fine too. So we're shooting to see if we can get Board of Selectmen approval on the next Tuesday. If we can't, it will end up being the following Monday, which is when we would have a regularly scheduled meeting.
No, I won't, I never.
Beautiful.
Okay, great job. Motion to adjourn?
Make a motion that we adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
All those in favor? Aye.
Excellent.